This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to get wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Brandon! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Taylor one, he scores! And the city ground goes ballistic! He's through here! And in the end, Forest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Red Side on the Trent, where finally, after a prolonged period of drama, it seemed like Nottingham Forest finally seems to have captured the signing of Paraguayan international winger Ramon Sosa. I am delighted to be joined by Associate Editor ESPN FC Roberto Rojas, who is of Paraguayan and American descent. So thank you so much for joining us, Roberto. I really appreciate your time. Firstly, how have you been? You good?
Yeah, I've been great. I mean, obviously, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, obviously, it's finally over, this kind of like saga that we've had with Ramon Sosa, whether he was going to go, whether he was going to stay. But it looks likely that he is going to head off. And yeah, obviously, it's going to be a very exciting time for many Nottingham Forest fans who I'm sure are going to be very, keeping an eye of what he's going to be able to do. And, I'm happy to also discuss about what he can provide to the table. And also just the story of him going to English and like going to English football, I think is remarkable. But yeah, Christian, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Obviously, the pleasure's all ours. And yeah, again, obviously, we saw, we'll touch on this story a bit later, because I saw that little tweet thread. It was incredible, really. But I suppose we should probably start at the top. So obviously, it has been a huge Willy Won't-y saga. It seems to be based around loosely, I think it's their Copa Libertadores fixture of River Plate. Is that right? I think.
Yeah, I think there's obviously other things as well. I think certainly just going into the saga, obviously the president, Andre Fassi of Talleres, wanted to get the most out of him because I think they kind of knew that Ramon Sosa, and that was the promise given to him before the Copa America, actually. So this was back in June, or even before that in May, that if Ramon Sosa was going to be sold, it was going to be for the right fee. And, obviously the amount that was given from various clubs obviously was given to Nottingham Forest. I mean, you had teams like Everton, Chelsea, Brentford, Wolverhampton, they all came in with the interest, but it seemed like Nottingham Forest was the only team that really came in with the real offer of saying, yes, we want to get him. And rightly so. I think, yeah, obviously they want to get as much cash as they want. These Argentine teams need the money because of the financial dire straits that they're in. And yeah, obviously a record sale for the club, for Talleres de Córdoba, not one of the big traditional teams in Argentine football. Him coming to English football is a big deal for him, for the club. And yeah, I think obviously for a lot of fans now from Paraguay that have been accustomed to seeing their players play in different clubs, such as Miguel Almirón with Newcastle or Julio Enciso at Brighton. I think now all the eyes of Paraguay will be going towards the city ground of what he can do at Nottingham Forest.
So we've got like a Paraguayan fan club account, which you see on Twitter, and as you can imagine, they're very excited at the prospect of Sosa coming to Forest. But I suppose, apart from obviously the club trying to maximise the fee, which I obviously completely understand, why do you think it's been such a volatile transfer? I know obviously the club's got to do what we can to ensure that. Obviously, we all know that football's never easy, it never goes through smoothly, but it does seem to be very drawn out. A lot of it's been played out in public. There's been a lot of conflicting reports here and there up until last night, really, until where, sort of everyone seemed to say, right, okay, it looks like it's a go now. Why do you think it's been so fractious?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's just trying to get the maximum fee. Like I said, I think a lot of these Argentine clubs, not even just from Talleres, I think from all the big teams, like they want to maximize all the money that they can get because they understand that, getting that financial gain can help them in the long term, be it in Copa Libertadores, be it in any sort of way. I think that helps them a lot because obviously it's a huge financial crisis happening in the country. So they understand that, being able to sell off their biggest prospects. And I think Talleres has always been known for being a club that's very stingy with their sales anyway. So you add into that, I think it's just, caused this kind of chaos. And I think for someone like Ramon, who, having spoken to people in his camps, spoken to people who are very close to him, he wanted this move. This is something that he dreamed of all his life, playing in the Premier League. And obviously there was this cryptic message of him with the sad emoji, certainly someone that clearly had shown the disinterest of maybe the deal not going through. But ultimately now heading into a couple weeks before the start of the Premier League season, looks like it's going to happen, and rightly so. It's good that it is happening now, just before the start of the season, because that way he's already rested up after playing in Copa America. He goes into with a new head, and obviously I think for Talleres fans as well, I think they're happy to see him go, because I think he knows that. I think they know that they've done all they could to help him achieve his dream of going to the Premier League. I think they understood that they didn't want to see him go to a bigger team like a Boca Juniors or River Plate or whatever. I think he understood that. I think they understood that getting someone like Ramon Sosa to play the way that he did and then make the move to English football was something that ultimately was, I think, the ending that fans wanted. And yeah, I think certainly it'll be a sad time for them, especially with them still being in the Copa Libertadores, still facing off big teams as well, and trying to strive for domestic titles in Argentina. But that's the way of the game, unfortunately, that, when these big teams come up like Nottingham Forest or any of these teams that are interested in him, you can't stop them really as well. It doesn't help as well that there was always this drama with the agent as well, of him switching from his former one, Daniel Campo, to Jorge Mendes. So I'm sure that had to play a big deal as well. And yeah, that's where we are today, right now, with this transfer.
Explains a lot if Mendes is his agent, of course, especially with his relationship with Nuno. But obviously, as you said, he's been electric for Talleres, and I guess it seems he's always stepped up no matter where he's been. And obviously, I was reading a thread. He's generally not stuck around more than a year or so, but he's always gone into bigger and better every time, from like sort of humble beginnings to pushed onwards. But I suppose this is somewhat a bit of a slight against him in a sense, but an unfair one, because obviously he's going to be 25 this month. Should Forest fans be a bit concerned that he's leaving South America so late? I know obviously Tim Vickery especially has said that, generally speaking, South American prospects tend to leave by 21, 22 at the very latest. So what do you sort of think that's going to be an issue at all, or do you think that it's not really much to worry about?
Yeah, even earlier. I mean, even you got players that are going at 16, 17 even now.
Yeah.
If they don't pull it off there, they come back, and that could be always the big risk. And look, I think this has kind of been the story of his career, really, is that he comes in, he made his professional debut at 20. So think about that. Like at that age, he started off, coming from a rural section of Paraguay. I'll talk a little bit of his life story, but he comes from a rural section of Paraguay. Typically trying to make ends meet. I mean, certainly people from that part of the world are always trying to see as football as kind of their escape. And yeah, ultimately it came a point in time where he was obviously touted by one of the bigger teams in perspective in Paraguay. He started off at River Plate, no relation to the big one in Argentina, but yeah, he started off there at the age of 20. So think about that. You got players that are making their debuts at 15, 16, 17 professionally. I mean, look at Yamal and all that. This is a guy who's done it at 20. But I think this, like I say, it's the story of his career. He just kept evolving and getting better and better. He kind of proved these doubters wrong. Like, okay, it doesn't matter how old you are. As you could be in this context, it's a late bloomer technically. Yeah. Like as crazy as that sounds, it really feels that way, because he just continued to get better year after year. River Plate, then Olimpia, the big team in Paraguay. Then he moves to Argentina, plays for 2 different clubs in Argentina, and just gets better and better. And now he makes this move right before his 25th birthday, which I think it's a good age, honestly. Like, I think he's in the prime of his career. His stock hasn't been as high as it's been before. So, no, I don't think there is that concern. I think, if anything, it's allowed him to look at it as a challenge, really, that someone would go into the Premier League at that age, and especially for that money as well. 15 million, that's, for someone of that age to come from South America, that doesn't really happen a lot. Like, usually some of those players are either missed the boat or perhaps are just not good enough to make that jump to any big European league, let alone the Premier League, and let alone a team like Nottingham Forest. So let's not beat around the bush. This is a big team. This is a historic team. So yeah, I think when you put into those kind of perspectives, it's like, why wouldn't you want to cheer him on? I think certainly the career that he's had, and kind of even the doubters, really. There had been some doubters, like you said, that maybe he's just a bit too old, or he's just missed the boat to make the big jump to Europe. And here he is doing it. So yeah, I mean, if he's been kind of proving these doubters wrong with the way that he's progressed through his career, who's to say he can't do the same at Nottingham Forest and be able to perform well over there?
Definitely. I mean, that's obviously the hope, of course. I mean, I did love the where he obviously his first man of the match performance for the plate, and he spoke in his native dialects rather than Spanish. I thought that was a really lovely touch. Obviously, that was he does seem that family is very important to him, and obviously, as you said in your threads, how he sort of obviously as soon as he got his first big money move, he buys his family a house, sort of thing. He does seem like a generally like the sort of person you want to have at a football club rather than some of the more problematic footballers that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is something that again, the whole notion of the Guarani language is one of the official languages in Paraguay, but it's mainly spoken from those from, like, obviously I'm born and raised in the United States, but my parents from Paraguay, they come from that rural area. They tend to speak that way more than Spanish. But ultimately, where Ramon came from, his background, his kind of like working class. And I wouldn't say dirt poor, but definitely not of like the sophisticated class in Paraguay. But he just, I think that was just a really nice touch that he always wanted to feel as if he's close with his family. He's not someone that is very problematic either. That's always been kind of the issue with a lot of these footballers, that maybe they get so good that perhaps the fame or just the intention just gets to them and they kind of fall off and get into vices like, I don't know, like alcohol, drugs, or just partying or whatever. Ramon wasn't like that. He just continued to strive to get better. Isn't really someone that likes to talk a lot anyway. He's kind of a shy person, but he just continues to strive because he understood that if he was going to get good enough to play at a top level and make it to a Premier League like he did right now, it was about just trying to be as humble as he could, to stay with, feet on the floor and just continue to work hard. And that's what he ultimately did. So I applaud him, and I wish that other players from Paraguay are like him as well, because I think that would not only help kind of the team as a whole for further point, be it the national team, whatever, but also for other Paraguayan players to see, like, look, if you can follow that model of what Ramon did, or even Miguel, Julio Enciso, whatever, why can't you? If only you put in that work. So yeah, it's a good story to, and obviously he hasn't kicked the ball yet, but it's a story that I think hopefully a lot of footballers can look to and say, if you do this and do that, you could probably succeed and make it to your dreams, which is playing in the Premier League.
Definitely. No, it's all sounds very positive, which is really good to see. Obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it's about a $15 million fee, which is about £12 million in terms of currency exchange, which naturally, that for Premier League, you don't really get too much of that. So it sounds very smart financially from Forest. But what would you say that Forest are getting for their money in terms of footballer?
Yeah, I think certainly you're getting someone that, again, I think, when you look at your atypical winger, you obviously look at someone that obviously has the intelligence of moving beyond the flanks. And I think Ramon has done that. I think one of the things that I've always impressed by him is just how unpredictable he is with the ball. You just look like the way that he plays, you think you're like, someone's got to stop him. Like, I'm not saying like he's like Messi or Mbappe or whatever, but still, like, you look at the way he plays, I'm thinking to myself, how is anyone able to stop him? Like, he's beating all these players. And yeah, I mean, obviously from what you've been seeing from Argentina, like saying he's the best player, I mean, they're right. Like, when you and to say that for one, to say that for a Paraguayan, and two, to say that for someone at this age group as well, I think is remarkable. Like, to look at the amount of talent that Argentina has and produces, I think is incredible to see that a 24-year-old Paraguayan is the best. But yeah, you're obviously getting a player, like I said, very quick. I think he's certainly someone that, is able to perform mainly on the left wing. I think that's kind of his best position, I would say. Like, if I had to pinpoint, but again, he can work in the middle, he can work in the right. He's very dynamic in that sense, which I think a lot of Premier League teams really like, and I think that's why they went for him or wanted to get him. But yeah, good technical ability. He isn't afraid to shoot. That's for sure. He scored a really long range shot against Independiente a couple of months ago. So clearly he has the audacity to do that. And I think that's something that players and fans like to see. And I think he's just someone that, is just so hardworking. And I think that's something that is very typical from South Americans. And I think they always want that. I think my only big fear as well is that maybe he wants to do too much. And I think you even see that from maybe when Almiron was there in Newcastle, or even in Enciso when he started. That's always the big thing. Physically, I think he's grown a bit better. You may look that he's skinny now, but obviously he's grown a lot of muscle mass ever since he moved to Argentina. So I'm curious to see how he can really go into the physicality and the demands of what Premier League football is like, playing week in, week out, playing multiple competitions at the same time. So yeah, I think getting someone like him is certainly important. But no, I genuinely think this is probably, I wouldn't say the most exciting talent, because I think you have Enciso, who I think is the purest one, but he's certainly the one on form at the minute. I think he's the most on form Paraguayan player at the minute right now. Enciso's doing very well, doing well at the Olympics so far. You know, they're playing Egypt at the time of recording in the quarterfinals to hope that they can go for a medal. And I think he's the most talented player, but I think Ramon is the most on form player as well. When you look at consistency, it's a shame that he couldn't play a lot in the Copa America. I mean, obviously they got out of the group stage, and it was going to be hard to fit those players in. But he had a goal and assist in the competition, so clearly he had, even in the few minutes that he played. I'm trying to think, it's not been a lot, but hey, at least he came up with good numbers against Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica. So yeah, again, I think Forest have really, got a coup right here, and I think a lot of Paraguayan players people are going to be happy about this move, because I think the respect of Nottingham Forest around the world is big, and I think certainly as a team that ultimately, they understand the position that they're in. They're obviously fighting to try to get out of relegation, mid-table, strive for a bit more, but you have someone that can genuinely play consistently 90 minutes and be a starter, at least fight into that starting lineup for Nuno Espirito Santo. So I think this is a move that universally is accepted from all fronts, from Forest fans, from Talleres fans, from Paraguayans, overall, even from Ramon as well.
Definitely, yeah. It's actually, I was going to ask about it, because you sort of so we've got one of our friends in the pods as well, Nathan Joy's a South American football expert. Both of you have described him as, as you just said, they're quick, technical, unpredictable, very hardworking, loves to cut it inside and shoot, but equally very he doesn't necessarily do it all the time. He can quite tricky in that sense too. But obviously, you mentioned his physical aspects. You mentioned obviously he's put in muscle mass on, that sort of thing. He's been bulked up a little bit. Do you think that he'll have a easy enough time adjusting to Premier League life, or do you think it might take him a bit of time to get his feet under the table?
I mean, that's the we have to find out. We have to wait and see. I mean, again, look, if he's been able to do it at any club that he's played for and hit it from the get-go, why wouldn't he do it for another club? Again, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different league, whole different standards. Expectations are going to be big, but I don't see why not. I genuinely think, if he is obviously willing to do it, and I think he's always had that attribute to do it, and I think if Nuno has a plan for him, we have to wait and see where he fits in the system. But yeah, I don't see why not. I don't see why he can't do it. I think he understands that he's ready for this move. I think a lot of people understand it as well, that he is, he wouldn't get this interest from Premier League teams if it wasn't for nothing. It wouldn't be out of nowhere, because they understand that he's ready to make this big jump. So yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if he'll get it from the get-go. I think obviously, like any other player, they're going to have to take their time. But hey, if he hits it from the get-go, and just performs well, then yeah, exactly. It's you've done it all. I'm not saying he's going to score or get an assist or whatever on his debut, but if he just puts in a good performance, the fans like him, the coaches like him, the players like him, I think it shouldn't be that hard, because I think that's ultimately what you want. You want that confidence to build in, that once you start going in, and of course he wants to always score and do all that, but once you get into that kind of move where you can help your team and win, of course, I think that's the most important thing, that you perform in the extent of okay, say if Nottingham win 4-0 or something on the, I'm trying to remember who their opening debut is, but an example.
That'd be nice. Yeah, that'd be very nice.
Who do they play again?
We got Bournemouth at home first game, which on paper doesn't necessarily sound that daunting, but they seem to have our number every time we play them.
Right. So, yeah, no. So, but say Ramon hits it from the get-go, just an assist for the first goal, and then they win. It's yeah, all right, welcome. It's you can get better from there. So yeah, I think as long as he stays healthy and he just performs well and he does what he has to do, I don't see why he can't succeed. I genuinely feel that way.
I think it will help as well that obviously Nuno can speak Spanish. There's a few other Spanish speakers players in the team as well, so at least have a bit of a gentle introduction rather than just being thrown in cold to a foreign country with no idea of the language or anything like that. Yeah. So that should obviously help. One thing you did tweet, I was pick up on. Obviously, you said you're very curious to see how he gets on with players like Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs White, which fingers crossed Gibbs White will stay. I mean, it looks like he will. But so from that aspect, how do you sort of see that sort of connecting? So in theory, he probably would be taking Hudson-Odoi's spot if he obviously kicked on well enough. And also Hudson-Odoi can play on the right. But so let's say in a game he comes on with half an hour to go and it's Gibbs White, Central, and Alanga on the right. How do you see that sort of trio working behind the front man?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has to just, try to combine well. I think Sosa will understand that, working in that flank is kind of where he fits well. I think certainly, trying to combine well with, the attacking players, with that front man, if it is going to be Tayo, I think it's certainly important on that end. And I think, I think just trying to understand the physical aspects of what Premier League football is going to be interesting because, not a lot of Paraguayans have played in this league for many years. Of course, you've had in the past Roque Santa Cruz and many others after that. But I think it's going to be a big test, I think, as well, is just trying to see of the physical demands of what he can provide. And again, it's a big team. There's a lot of players on this team. So, he's certainly going to have to get it from the get-go of being able to be trusted. And of course, if you're getting in for that kind of money as well, you have to perform to that extent, especially not coming from a major European league as well. So, it's a risk. It's a big risk, but I think ultimately as well, it's a risk that is worth taking, and it's all down to him to really just get on with it as well. And, again, it's just looking at the fixtures right here. I mean, you got Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves as the first three before going to Liverpool and then just finishing off as well. I mean, of course, he's going to be with duty with Paraguay. He's certainly going to be a player that's going to start in those games, assuming he's healthy, and he's going to play those World Cup qualifiers. So you have to deal with that as well, just having to travel across the continents moving forward. So, I mean, again, if he's able to combine well with, those attacking players, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, many other players as well that are in that team, Elanga, if he's going to play some minutes, Dominguez, another player, Sangarde, just try to work in that kind of midfield forward line, like just right around that area. I don't see why he can't be successful on that end. So, I think he can definitely do well on those fronts.
And obviously, just regarding Paraguay, obviously, you're right. It will be World Cup qualification. Again, it's crazy that he didn't play from at all at youth level. I think that's, as you said earlier, it's testament to him being a late bloomer, really, because that's so rare to see someone just skip it out completely, just make their debut, bang, straight at like international level. Obviously, Copa America it wasn't quite a successful Copa America campaign for Paraguay, but obviously you mentioned he got goal and assist in the group stages. Do you see him? You just sort of touched on there. You expect him to be a starter. I'm guessing that will definitely be the case now moving forwards if he's going to be a Premier League player.
Yeah, I think just the way that he's been performing and kind of the way that, again, I think he was always in the setup. And again, Paraguay are going to come with a new coach as well. It's looking like it's going to be Gustavo Alfaro, who was the former Costa Rica coach and also the Ecuador coach at the last World Cup. So we have to wait and see as well. That's another like kind of like waiting and see. But I think if the setup works well, especially with Paraguay in such a crucial point of trying to qualify for the World Cup, I think Sosa is definitely going to have to play, and combining with the likes of Julio Enciso, we'll see if Almiron is going to be in there. Diego Gomez, who is set to go to Brighton as well. Yeah, I think it's good to have kind of that front three be Premier League based, which you don't see a lot on many South American teams, be it not Argentina or Brazil or whatever. I think getting this move for Ramon, even if he was to stay at Talleres, like if this move didn't happen, he was always going to start for the Paraguay national team. Now making this jump to the Premier League, playing against the best players in the world, I think it's just kind of secured his spot moving forward. So, I think that's certainly something that Ramon is going to have to try to have the responsibility that if he is going to be a starter for both club and country, that he has to get to the demands. And hopefully that he can do that. And I think hopefully as well, a lot of Paraguayans will be expected on Nottingham Forest games moving forward, like they always do for Brighton, for Newcastle, those type of teams as well. And who knows, man? Maybe there'll be Paraguayans coming into the City Ground. You get those those Paraguayan flags right there. You got the red on the flag. So that's clearly, it looks like the Paraguay shirt looks like the Nottingham Forest kid anyway.
It's a good start, isn't it? Obviously, with our influx of Brazilian players, there's been like a Brazil flag at the City Ground. I'm sure we can make room for a few other South American nations as well. But massive thank you so much for your time, Roberto. I really do appreciate you giving that such a detailed insight into what Forest are potentially getting and more about his character and his story. It's been fantastic to listen to you. So thank you again so much. I really do appreciate that. And I hope it all comes to fruition. He's a rousing success for us, and then we talk about his next steps.
Hopefully, man. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting to know more of the Forest community as well. They've been kind of welcoming as well with the tweets, and hopefully when it does come time that he does play, that that he can provide a lot of good moments for them that I think Forest definitely need moving forward.
Yeah, be nice. Yeah, but a massive thank you again. And as for us, we'll be back fairly soon. Obviously, it depends what Forest do in the market, so whether we do any more of these. But by and large, we'll have a second preseason roundup update. I think potentially either after Villarreal or after the Olympiacos game. We'll let you know. But thank you again for listening, and come on, you Reds.